Good morning. It's Wednesday morning, the 1st of April, so April Fool's Day today. Let's hope that nobody's playing any tricks on us this morning, although it would be nice to think that coronavirus had all been a joke, wouldn't it? Okay, so yesterday we talked about your inner critic. So I shared with you 7 different types of inner critic and what those might be. And hopefully you've read the sheet that I left with you and had a good chance to really think about which of particular inner critics were yours. So did you get a chance? Have you found any ones that particularly resonated with you? Most people have more than one, but a lot of people don't just have 1 or 2, and in fact I've never met anybody that's had all 7 yet. So good morning Lindsay, morning Leisha, Susie and Fern. Thank you for joining us this morning. So today we're going to be talking about communicating confidently. And by that, I'm going to look specifically at body language and assertiveness, because communicating confidently is such a huge subject that actually we're going to focus just on those 2 today. Now, back in the 1960s, there was a very famous research project done that the results of it were suggested to be that when we communicate, 93% of our communication is non-verbal. So through our body language, through the way our tone, our volume. Morning, Anne, Paul and Simon. So our body language is down to all, the message we communicate is down to all of those things. But in actual fact, that research was taken the wrong way. The facts didn't show that entirely. So this myth of only 7% of our message coming across through verbal messages is actually untrue. However, it is very true that a large amount of our communication is from our body language, our vocal tone, etc. So I want you to imagine just now that you are sitting in a situation where you feel nervous, you feel anxious, and you feel uncomfortable. Maybe doing a Facebook Live like me. But imagine yourself in that scenario. Could it be a job interview? Could it be, you're doing a post of a video in your group for the first time? Imagine yourself in that situation and you start to notice what your body language is doing. So what do you think your body language might be doing in that situation? It's very likely to be quite shrunken, so that you are shrinking in on yourself. Your body language is trying to take up as little space as possible. And that's what we do naturally when we feel nervous, when we feel uncomfortable or anxious. We take up as little space as possible. So your arms might fold, your shoulders would fold in, your legs crossed, leaning forward, your chin would drop, and you'd stop making eye contact. And what that does then is give a message to the person looking at you that you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel confident. And if that's a job interview or a video post like this, then that's not a great message to be going across. But more importantly, because our body position and our body language and the way we hold ourselves is part of a feedback loop to the brain, what happens is you're giving yourself a message that you don't feel confident. So on that loop, your body position causes a change in brain chemistry, which feeds back to the brain and your emotions that, just a minute here, she's not feeling very confident. And that loop means that the more your body language becomes shrinking and taking up less room, the more you're going to feel less confident. But imagine it the other way around now. You're sat there today feeling quite comfortable, quite confident, sitting there and listening. That's because you feel your body language would be more powerful, it would be more open. You'd be sitting there and taking up space if you felt like it. You might be sitting back with your arm over the chair, you might have your legs out, you might be open and taking as much space as you possibly can. Because that's what we do when we feel confident. We relax and open. So research has been done to prove all of this. They did an experiment where they asked a certain group of people to sit in a positive, confident pose. Then they asked another group to sit in the sort of shrunken and inconfident pose, and another to be the control group. They measured the serotonin and cortisol levels of these people. Serotonin being, testosterone and cortisol levels. Testosterone being a measure for confidence, and cortisol being a measure of stress. And what they found was that in the group that were relaxed and doing open poses, their testosterone went up and their cortisol dropped. In other words, they were more confident and less stressed. So the research is there that if you have an open, relaxed body language, you are going to feel more confident. And on that feedback loop I told you about, again, you're reinforcing to yourself that message, as well as telling those people out there that, yes, I'm feeling more confident too. And this is really well demonstrated in a TED Talk by Amy Cuddy. So if you haven't seen this famous TED Talk, then please do go on to Google and find it. In fact, I'll put a link below the video afterwards. It's a really famous one, but it's really great. She did all the research into this, and it's a fabulous video just explaining what I've said about power poses. And just to demonstrate the power pose is really like a Wonder Woman. So it's hands on hips, legs apart, John Wayne style, chin up and eye contact, chest out. That's what's known as a power pose. Now, clearly, you're not going to stand at an interview like that. You're not going to walk down the street like that. But, morning, Gordon, just seen your message there. You're not going to walk down the street like that. So what I'm suggesting to you, quite simply, is that when you are in a situation where you feel nervous, anxious, uncomfortable, you take a look at your body language. How am I sitting? How much space am I taking up? How relaxed am I? And just shift yourself a little bit. Maybe open the shoulders up, maybe lift the chin, make eye contact, smile, sit up a bit taller. All of these things will be a great way of not only demonstrating confidence to the person you're talking to, but in giving that confidence back to yourself. So I expect this morning at some point you to practice your power poses and the sitting up straight. For myself, when I go on to do presentations and talks, which I do quite a lot of, you'll find me in the toilet just before in my power pose, building up my power and confidence, ready to go on and talk. So it's a well-known technique that's used, but do use it in any situation. Just notice what your body language is doing when you feel uncomfortable or nervous, because it will make a big difference to you. Okay, so that's body language. Now I'm going to talk about assertiveness. So when people lack confidence, they tend to not speak up for what they want or what they'd like to ask for. So we tend to avoid saying things that might upset others. We tend to avoid saying what our needs are, what our opinions are, etc. So we tend to just fall into that withdrawn stage where we don't put ourselves out there. Now, that's particularly true if you're a bit of a people pleaser or a bit of a perfectionist, that you tend not to want to speak up too much for what you want, for your opinions and your needs. I think back to my mum, who was a wonderful person, but she had a low self-esteem and she was very much a people pleaser and worrying what other people thought. So she wouldn't speak up for what her needs were. She was a genuine martyr personality where everybody got the best and she'd have what was left over. And the trouble with that is that when we don't speak up for ourselves and for what we want, we swallow down our needs. They become inside us as a bit of a weight and a bit of a block to us inside. So if you keep swallowing down what your needs are and what your opinions are and asking for help, things like that, if you keep doing that, it just builds up inside of you here. And at some point it's going to come out. It's going to come out probably at the wrong time, in the wrong moment, as a sort of anger or resentment. Which is just you releasing the pressure of all of that. And more importantly, what it does is it chips away at your confidence and self-worth. Because if you don't value yourself enough to speak up for what your needs are, for what your opinions are and what your ideas are, then what you're telling yourself is, I'm not of value. My opinions are of value. My needs aren't of value. So you're keeping that down. And we need to be able to build our self-worth by speaking up for them, whatever the outcome is. So because my mum didn't do that, I grew up not having a model of what assertiveness is. And because I didn't have that role model, I had to learn how to be assertive. So the good news is assertiveness is a skill. It's like learning to ride a bike. You try it, you practice it, and then you can be more and more assertive. But one important thing is known as, I like to call it the Bill of Assertive Rights. So Susie's got a copy of that, which she can attach to the video. But just to quote a few of your assertive rights. So these are rights that you have as a person and other people have in their right as well. So I have the right to make mistakes. I have the right to change my mind. I have the right to say no without being guilty. I have the right to be illogical in my decisions. And I have the right to be the judge of what I do and what I think. So there's a big list there of assertive rights. Some of them will sound uncomfortable to you, but when we're communicating confidently, knowing that you have that right to speak up for yourself, as do other people, is really the sort of rights that we all have and that we should be speaking up for. So if you're back at the stage where you're not speaking up, the more that you hold back and swallow down all of that sort of anxiety or resentment and not getting your opinions heard, the more it becomes a habit, until it becomes a habit that's really quite difficult to break. And on the other side of it, the other person can't help you out because they don't know what you think or want. So you're doing them a disservice because although they're getting heard, maybe their opinions and ideas would be different if you'd shared your own. I've also attached, that Susie's attaching in the messages, an assertiveness questionnaire. So have a go at that after the call. It's a great chance to see, not to beat yourself up as not being assertive, but a great opportunity to learn the different circumstances in which you are struggling with assertiveness. Because for some people, it will be in asking for help. For some people, it will be conflict. For other people, it might be returning something to a shop which is faulty. There are all sorts of different situations where you may or may not feel assertive. So if you answer the questionnaire, it's going to help you point out exactly where you are lacking assertiveness. So assertiveness itself is a style of communication. And there is some other styles of communication that it fits alongside. So passive communication, for example, is when you don't say anything back. You don't give any opinions, you don't give any ideas, you don't respond, you don't put your thoughts and needs out there. You just keep quiet. That's passive communication. On the other end of the scale, we've got aggressive communication, which is obviously when you push your ideas on everybody else in a sort of bullying and angry mode, so that the other person daren't really put their idea out there because you're being so aggressive. So neither of those particularly work. Then we've got the combination of the two, just to make it more confusing, passive-aggressive behaviour, communication. And that's when, again, you don't speak up, you're passive, but you allow out some of your feelings in an aggressive, non-verbal way. So it might be tutting in a queue, or it might be waiting till after the conversation and saying things behind people's back. And it might be that you bang pots or pans or something like that if you're angry at home. We let that message out that we're angry, but we don't do it verbally, so we don't do it assertively. So the difference then is that assertive communication, you are respecting the other person and yourself. So hopefully it comes across as a win-win situation because you're listening to them and you're listening to yourself. And this is a great style of communication when we're in this sort of lockdown position, because we've got people close around us that we're not used to spending as much time with. We've got people around us that at times will be driving us mad. So this style of communication maintains the relationship you have with the person, rather than making it so that the relationship is toxic or is one way or the other. So try this with the people that you're living with at the moment. I assure you it works much better. So what do I actually mean by assertiveness then? Well, as I said, it's about respecting the other person. So say, for example, you were wanting to say that you wanted your partner to help with the cooking because you've been doing it all so far in the lockdown and you'd like your partner to. But your partner has previously said that their work is heavy, there's a lot more going on, they're too busy. So how would you deal with that situation assertively? So, for example, we would start by respecting the other person. So you could acknowledge the fact that your partner's work is busier than yours. So you could say, I appreciate that at the moment you're getting more work during the day. Or you could acknowledge the facts of the situation. You know, we're in lockdown here together. We could be here for quite a few weeks. You know, it would be good to get some ground rules in place. So you start by respecting the other person and saying that you've heard them. You don't have to agree with them. You know, you could be thinking they're talking rubbish, but you make them feel respected by saying that you've heard them. You then move on to respecting yourself. So you then talk about being what you would like, and you use I statements for that. So rather than saying, you're making me frustrated, you're not cooking anything, it's out of order, you would say, the fact that I'm cooking all the time has made me feel like I would like us to share this process of cooking together. So I didn't say that very well. Let's say it again. So you could say, using I statements, we're in this for a long time, for a few weeks. It would be good if we could share the cooking. Because when I do all the cooking, I feel that I'm being taken advantage of, and that upsets me. It would be great if we could therefore share the cooking duties. So you're using I statements. I feel, I think, I want. And then you finish it off with an option at the end. I would like us to do this. Would it be possible for us to do that? So just to give you the structure again, starting off with acknowledging the other person, either what they've said or the facts of the situation, so they feel heard. Secondly, stating how you feel, I want, I think. And thirdly, going to put in an option. You know, how could we resolve this? And that allows you then to speak to them in a way that's respected them, respected you, and maintained the relationship. So assertiveness is simply a skill to learn, simply taking together a structure like that and thinking about how you can put a message across of your opinion, but still maintain the relationship. Now, there are a few do's and don'ts around assertiveness, because you might not want to use assertive style of communication every time. There are times when we don't want to say anything, when we think if we put our opinion that actually it's going to cause more problems and you're not really that bothered. If you make that choice, that's fine. There are a very few times, but there are some times when you need to be aggressive, when in danger or things like that. Passive-aggressive isn't something that is a good style of communication, but there are times when you want to be assertive. So think of it as part of your communication toolkit rather than particularly something I have to use all of the time. So the do's and don'ts around assertiveness are, first of all, don't feel guilty after you've said it. Because you have respected yourself and the other person, even if you're putting across something that they might not like, you've done it in a way that respects them, therefore you've no reason to feel guilty. Secondly, don't apologise. Again, when you're speaking up for yourself, apologies not only are unnecessary, but will soften what you're saying, make it sound less important. And particularly in a work scenario where you're wanting to put across a point quite strongly, if you apologise or soften it, then the message isn't heard as clearly. Thirdly, don't put too many explanations and justifications around it. For example, if you're saying no, in this situation, I'm not able to help you. Don't put too many justifications because the dog's sick, my boss is demanding me to work more, etc., etc., etc. Don't justify it or defend it too much, because again, you lose the power of the message. And that's just coming from your insecurity and the fact that you don't want to upset people. So in terms of your assertiveness, try to avoid doing any of those things, but do practice assertiveness, because as I said, it's like a skill. You need to learn it and practice it. And practicing it with the nearest and dearest around you is a really great opportunity, so that you can then use it when you are in a position where you feel more uncomfortable. But the most important thing around assertiveness is that it's not about the outcome. You might be wanting to put a point across, get your opinion heard, but the outcome isn't the most important thing. The fact that you have spoken up for yourself, that you haven't swallowed down all those feelings you had, will really boost and reinforce your self-worth and confidence. Because if you imagine that you've got to put your opinion across, even if it doesn't change the mind of the other person, the fact that you've spoken up calmly, you've spoken up clearly, and you've given your opinion is enough to make a really important impression on the other person, because they know where you're coming from, but more importantly, to build that confidence and that self-worth. So what I'd like you to do in terms of exercises from today is you've got your Bill of Assertive Rights to read. And as I said, it might strike you as a bit uncomfortable. Oh, I'm not sure I agree. But if you respect those in another person, you need to respect them in yourself as well. Secondly, this is an assertiveness questionnaire. And I'd love to know how you score on those and which particular points that you fell down on. So do post a message in the group or do a short video to show exactly what you've learned from the assertiveness questionnaire. And thirdly, have a go at being assertive. Remember the 3 points. You respect the other person by acknowledging you've heard them. You speak for yourself using an I statement, and you offer an option. Have a go at practicing that. I think you'll be surprised at the response you get. I know a lot of my clients talk about, but what if they come back with me angrily, and what if this happens? But in actual fact, usually, almost always, there is a good positive response. Because people want to know what you want. They want to know what your needs are. Imagine if you're in a partnership with somebody and they never tell you what they want or need. How frustrating is that? So if you're not used to speaking up for your opinions and needs, then it will be a relief to the other person to finally hear what it is that you want. So I'd really like you to have a go at practicing that and letting us know in the group what's happened and how you feel about being assertive. So as I said yesterday, all of this information is in my book, which is good enough. There's a whole chapter on assertiveness and another couple of chapters on communicating confidently. So if you want to get that, it's available on Amazon or Waterstones, or you can buy it on my website. So very exciting. And I'm also offering any of you within the group an opportunity for a free breakthrough call with me. And that breakthrough call allows you to have up to 60 minutes of a chat with me about your confidence issues. I will ask you lots of questions about the challenges you're having. And then I will share with you exactly how you can move forward. And so on the call, you'd get plenty of clarity and value, and hopefully you'd enjoy it too. To book that call, all you need to do is go to www.speakwithjo.com. Quite simple, speakwithjo.com. That takes you directly to my calendar and you can book in that free call with me. So hopefully I will see more of you again tomorrow and possibly speak to you very soon. Have an assertive, safe and well day. Thanks.